Excuse me, I'm next in line. Move. Excuse me, I'm next in line. Watch out. Excuse me, I'm next in line. I said move. Excuse me, I'm next in line.
Welcome, folks, to another episode of Will's Review. I'm your host, Will D. We're going to start off with some sports and sports entertainment talk real quick. So, first and foremost, the NBA, the Nets have moved back to 7th place, so they're still squeaking into the playoffs, it's looking like. And the Knicks have bumped up to 12th place, which I don't know how that happened. I guess the Corona started taking out top players on other teams. But all jokes aside, coronavirus has had a lot of interesting things happen in the world of sports. A lot of events have been canceled, rescheduled. People have already been talking like, is this going to ruin the Olympics and stuff like. So, frankly, if you're interested in what happened in your sport or like your favorite team or what's going on with them, just Google it, because legitimately these things are changing about every 4 to 5 hours. There's a new update on what the virus is causing the team to do, whether it's the stadium closures or only limited tickets, or are they going to play the game at a different site, or so just your team, your whatever. I'm not going through the entire NBA, NFL, MLB. I'm not doing that. All right. But I did say sports entertainment. So this past Friday, you had SmackDown and 205 Live WWE events done at the Performance Center in Florida because, well, frankly, strangers aren't allowed to go in there, so the wrestlers can still do their thing there. Don't know if this means that Raw will also be there. Like I said, it changes every 4 or 5 hours. So, probably by the end of the night, they'll make their decision because they're not going to just randomly put everybody on planes and send them to the next originally scheduled location if there's still a scare in that state or city. But since we've been gone, there was Elimination Chamber, which was the pay-per-view event that happened recently. So here's the thing about the road to WrestleMania. After the Royal Rumble, everything in between in WWE is very, very predictable. Why? What's going to make the biggest WrestleMania moment? So, last week, John Cena comes out on TV and is just like, oh, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to let the young wrestlers take over, yada, 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 yada. And somebody comes out to challenge him. Yeah, we all knew John Cena was going to have a WrestleMania moment. I don't know if anybody else was surprised by this, but we all knew it was going to happen.
Is it me or John Cena turning into a Undertaker?
No. Because he can lose. I mean, he actually has tons.
He's the lost side.
Technically, he's the guy who does all the promotions for WWE in a sense. Like he's essentially doing what he always frowned upon The Rock for not doing, despite the fact that The Rock always comes back when they need major numbers. So I can't quite be mad at The Rock for abandoning WWE because he hasn't. John Cena just does it way more frequently. And they are now officially calling him the greatest of all time because he too has 16 World Heavyweight Championship wins. And they all know that Ric Flair needs to get wiped out the books for being a racist. So, anywho, back to Elimination Chamber. Yeah, Ron John Cena just needs to give one more championship run. I would have done John Cena versus Goldberg if you asked me, just to get it out the way.
Yeah, just to give him the belt and then lose it to
anybody. I don't even care who it is. Anybody. But Elimination Chamber is one of these very predictable events that happens before WrestleMania this year because Royal Rumble came before it for whatever reason this year. Elimination Chamber is supposed to be January, folks. This just really pissed me off. So let's just get through this real quick. First off, you had the Viking Raiders versus Hawkins and Ryder. A very useless match, a very pointless match, a very why are we watching this match? I'd give it a 2 out of 5. Then you had Daniel Bryan versus Drew Gulak, which I did enjoy. This was actually a really good wrestling match. I give it a 3.5 out of 5, just because this didn't have the build-up that it needed, but as far as two great wrestling competitors, it was good. And the fact that they're using it to build off and possibly making them a tag team, I think could be very interesting, because I've wanted Drew Gulak to actually have a purpose when they switched him from 205 to main roster, because he was good on 205. Just sometimes if you have someone great, they don't need to be moved. Just leave them where they are. That's probably the best thing about NXT becoming its own show. Now they all can't get wiped away like some of the people who just graduated before them. You had Andrade versus Alberto Carrillo. I give this only a 2 out of 5, not because of the in-ring performance, because we've seen this every week for the past 2-3 months. Some form of like only Mexican wrestlers can only fight Mexican wrestlers. Like, really, is that how this works now? Is this now mini Mexican wrestling? Like, they have 4 people fighting each other every week for three months. We get it. Get over it. It's done. Move on. Storyline over. Zelina Vega is dotting herself out. Cool. um, she always is. Meanwhile, speaking of Zelina Vega, her boyfriend had a match at this, and Aleister Black beat AJ Styles. This match, I have to give a 3 out of 5. I like Black. I'm not a big AJ Styles fan, so I'm glad he picked up the W. But I mean, the unnecessary need for Undertaker yet again. You know, like, why is Undertaker haunting him? Taker's not coming out to speak yet. Yada yada yada. Like, I get it, but it's not really. I don't need all that. I think Aleister Black could have legitimately beat him on his own. So I'm a little upset by that. Then you had the Street Profits finally win the tag team championships from Rollins and Murphy. So that was great. That was probably the best match of the night in my book. I got to give that a 3.5 out of 5. I mean, what do you expect in this match? A lot of trash talk and a lot of high flying, and it's exactly what you got. No real interference from the Authors of Pain. They were pretty much taken out of the equation pretty early on.
What's going on with them?
Well, that's the thing. So, like, it didn't even make
They don't
sense.
even have a storyline.
It didn't make any sense for the Authors of Pain and Rollins to team up when Rollins and Murphy got the tag team championships. That should have been the AOP. Like, they should have been doing what the Undisputed Era was doing, essentially.
The whole thing I didn't understand.
So I don't really get it. I don't know why they would get rid of their mouthpiece just to become backup for somebody else. There's a lot that they were just very misused, and their time on NXT was very cut short to push them into main roster, and then they didn't have nothing to do in main roster. So that's essentially what's going on here. You had Strowman lose his Intercontinental title in, like, what, 2 weeks to 3 people. Like, he got jumped. This is the worst match of the night. It's a 1 out of 5. Like, you have him fight 3 people. Yes, I know he's Braun Strowman, but it was a garbage match. Like, even the finale was garbage. All 3 of them had to pin him down after, like, jumping him. It was garbage. It was garbage. And now Sami Zayn's the Intercontinental title, although I thought it was technically a rematch for Shinsuke Nakamura.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really confused by how any of this worked out. But okay. I gotta find out if, like, Strowman was injured before this event, and so they were just trying to get rid of it so somebody can actively have the title going to Mania. Maybe. But then, of course, Elimination Chamber is all about Elimination Chamber. So the first chamber was actually interesting in concept, right? 6 tag teams doing this, 12 guys in the ring. Could have been really amazing. I feel like this match fell short. I'm still going to give it a 3 out of 5 just because there are some spectacular moments. But a lot of the stuff that we wanted to see didn't happen. And somehow Miz and Morrison walking out of this didn't make any sense. I like them. Oh yeah, hey, ho ho. No, I like them, don't get me wrong. But this is definitely a match that they could have lost, and then, you know, did their whole bragging, like, back and forth talking, like, hey, you know, but we want our championship rematch, give them back the title, build a new storyline at Mania, you know, that sort of thing. Personally, that's my. And the women's match was a waste of time. A lot of nonsense with the Riot Squad. No one cares about the Riot Squad, right? Like, why are they even in this match? Like, just let's be real about it. Like, one of them, we don't have any sort of, like, gauge on why she's relevant in this at all. The other one was sleeping around with Lana at one point, and then Ruby Riott herself is the only name of note in the group, and the squad dissolved. And they all got injured relatively around the same time. Whatever. So they're all in there. Lord knows why. Asuka is kicking everybody's butt, and then Shayna Baszler gets out and takes every single last person out of this match in like 2 seconds with the same 3-hit combo. It's nothing against Shayna Baszler. I think she's great. If you were to tell me Shayna and Becky Lynch were going to be at Mania together, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But to waste an entire Elimination Chamber just to make Baszler seem like the monster, even though she's been a monster for like 3 years on NXT, you didn't need it. You just didn't need it, and especially the way that the whole her and Asuka thing went down. I'm sorry, that was lackluster for me. Asuka should be the person fighting Becky and take the title from her. That's just me. Because what's going to end up happening is Shayna beats Becky, right? Then Ronda comes back. Shayna's going to be like, you should be in my place. And Ronda's going to be like, I'm second to no one. And they're going to go at it. Tell me I'm wrong. Right? You see how predictable it is? I don't want it. Give the title to Asuka. No one knows what the hell's going to happen because she doesn't even speak English. And on that note, we're going to go to our first commercial break. And when we come back, some stuff that's been happening in the news.
Do whatever you are, remember me, in whatever you do, I love you. Do whatever you are, remember me, in whatever you do, I love you. From the city, many years ago, promised to come back and take care of us. Many years have gone by now, but still there is no sign of you. Mother died of heart attack many years ago. When she had thought you were married again. Now I'm the only one left in the family. Do whatever you want, remember me. Do whatever you need, I love you. Do whatever you want, remember me.
So, bunch of things going on. I mean, we all know Corona is the big talk of the town. So, I'm just going to start off with this. Corona is the flu. That's it. Corona is just another flu. It's more of an amplifying flu, whereas if you have some if you're predisposed to anything or you already have some mild illness, it makes it 10 times worse, sure. But essentially a lot of other diseases do the exact same thing. It's just the flu. So, use hand sanitizer. Wash your hands for every 5 times that you use hand sanitizer. Keep your body warm. Drink tea, drink coffee, drink your sodas, waters, juices without ice. Room temperature, maybe slightly chilled. It's very simple to keep yourself safe. There's no need for 50 rolls of toilet paper unless you have diarrhea. In all honesty, folks, it's not as scary as you think. Look, we're in New York, right? A very populated city with a lot of people and mass transit. They're not shutting down trains. Although Broadway's closed, you can still go to the movie theater on 42nd Street. In all honesty, people, it's a pandemic. It means to be more cautious, be more aware, to know that this can be very dangerous and severe because it is airborne. That's the main thing. It's airborne. It can be transmitted without being touched, so that's what you need to worry about. But so can the cold. So can the normal flu. A lot of the past flu strains, swine flu, all that, not the same thing. It didn't need to be ingested, right? So that's what it is. But it's not an epidemic. A lot of people who get it aren't dying. Percentage of deaths to people who have it is very low. You just gotta chill for 14 days. You might lose some bread for 14 days. That's about it. That's the worst part of this. You're gonna lose 14 days worth of money, possibly, because some people aren't gonna lose. They get paid to take off for the 14 days. So I'm just putting that out there because I'm tired of everybody freaking out about Corona like it's gonna be the end of the world. I think someone was even saying a psychic predicted that the super flu was gonna kill people, and I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. But just some things to note there. So there's some stuff happening in the city that I do want to mention. So we were talking about how, I say about 2-3 months back, I mentioned that they were changing laws so this way people who have a lot of these misdemeanors or bails that weren't for violent criminals were being allowed to not pay bail, chill outside, and still do their court date. I think what I mentioned it because there was somebody who was you know on trial for 3 robberies, gets told he doesn't have to pay his bail, and they still let him out, and he commits the 4th robbery on that same day. So essentially, with this whole new bail reform thing that the state has done, NYPD has pretty much been like, hey, have you noticed that there's a rise in felonies? Because you're literally letting criminals walk the streets while we're trying to put them in jail. Right, so understand, the reason for bail law was so that way you give a person technically a fair chance to not be housed, but you put an amount that either is justified to the crime because, if we're talking about someone who's getting arrested for maybe possession of weed, yeah, that person walks back onto the street, no real problem. People are going to get their weed anyway, right? He's not beating up anybody. He's not robbing anybody. He's not taking anything. He might be trying to sell the weed, or he might be trying to smoke so much weed he could only harm himself. That guy can go back out on the street. Anyone who commits robbery, assault, a sexual crime should have a ridiculously set high bail, especially if caught in the act of while awaiting a fair court date because of the threat that they pose. And especially someone who thinks that they're done, that they've been caught red-handed, that they're like, F it, if I get let out to the street, I might as well do everything that I want anyway, because now that person really isn't afraid of anything and will do anything they want. So if they're noticing that the felonies go up at the same time that the law has come, perhaps some reform on your reform needs to be adjusted. Bail law was created to kind of just hold people up from doing any more evil until we can clear the fact that they've done no evil. Not every institution in America was set up with negativity. Just saying. Coronavirus, too, has shut down a lot of schools. So CUNY and SUNY, they are holding down on classes. They've canceled all of their study abroad programs. And a lot of the public school system has also decided to, we're not sure we want to do schooling for the little ones right now. So here's the thing. A lot of the schools are offering online substitution, so this way people can stay home and take classes. A lot of the schools are just saying it's just going to be for 2 weeks, so things will be back up and running by next month, essentially. If you have to worry about your kid and this and all that, just remember, don't send them out for activities. The whole point is to keep their butts inside, even if they're driving you crazy. Leave them inside and you go do something. Just don't tell ASPCAs and stuff like that. Also, for people who think that the coronavirus is just getting people sick because it's actually 5G cell towers, please smack yourself. There's a theory going around that the coronavirus isn't really a virus. What's ended up happening is that people are getting sick in places where they're setting up 5G cell towers. Alright, so first and foremost, if people are getting ailments from cellular devices, towers, whatever, normally it's cancer-related, not flu-related, right? The whole radiation and waves and all that. So, not really the same thing. Secondly, why? Oh, because, they were setting up towers in China. Alright, so people just please smack yourself. Just want to put that out there, too. Like, I'm really done with that. Alright. So, I know, I just need to get that out, because I've been hearing that one, as a theory growing more and more and more, and I'm just like, why are you even letting this become a thing, people? Why? All right. For those of you who are still trying to plan for the rest of the year because you don't think it's Armageddon, uh, on May 23rd, there's going to be the 10th annual dessert like goals festival, and they're going to be holding this in Long Island City, Queens, as long as the coronavirus isn't a major thing again. So if you're someone who just really likes desserts, they're going to have a lot of local vendors at this event. You go, you pay, and you get to enjoy a bunch of different like bakeries from around the city and from a few other places as well. You know, so it's a fat ass's dream. That's pretty much all it is. I just figured it might brighten up your day to think of something positive while everyone's freaking out over nothing. So that's that. Also, some really interesting news in the world of media is that Johnny Depp is in talks to be the new Joker for Robert Pattinson's Batman. If you could only see Charles's face right now, he's like, what the hell?
No.
You don't like Johnny Depp as Joker?
No.
Why?
I don't know. For some reason, I can't see it.
I don't know. I even think that. So I posted on the Will's Review page on Facebook the article, and I think the picture they have him actually looks great. I think they have a picture of him, and I think it was just him doing like a cosplay for a photo shoot, and it looks really good.
No, the look, but the act.
I think Johnny Depp could be a great Joker.
The act itself.
I think like if you have his Joker act more like the Joker from what's his name, Heath Ledger's Joker, right? More that psychotic, evil, murderous. I think Johnny Depp can do a great job with that. He's known for being that oddly quirked, dark person. Yeah, right. Like, so something like so. This could be interesting. I'm not excited at all.
Like a business, pretty much like a psycho killer.
Right.
Like he's nice and everything, but he's a killer.
Like I'm not excited at all, folks, for this new Batman. Like at all. They're trying to make it more about him being a detective than the action hero. So that's another thing. Some people are excited for it. I'm not. And then it's Robert Pattinson. I'm sorry. You cannot go from playing glowy vampire to legendary superhero icon. Just no. And for everyone's just like, oh, but you've seen his other roles. Like, he can do a good job. I don't give about his other roles. Once he did Twinkling Vampire, he cannot be the manliest of men. Just can't. Sorry. Never in my book. So, I'm not excited for that. But if Johnny Depp is Joker, I'll have to watch it because I love Johnny Depp as someone crazy. It's just, and every role Johnny Depp does as a crazy person is usually a really good role. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was that Nicki Minaj's husband was arrested the other week because he did not register in the state of California as a sex offender. So, two things. One, a lot of people are asking why is he on the sex offenders list. Well, in New York, he was convicted of attempted rape. So Nicki Minaj married a man who tried to rape a woman. Then brought him to California, made it his official place of residence, and forgot that he has to tell the neighbors he's a sex offender. That's just I can't comprehend this. Like, you're how rich, how famous, and you marry a guy who tried to rape people. I didn't know this about the man, but now we do, unfortunately, right? Like, and we've been wondering why she didn't look so happy in all those photos.
Is she the one that he tried to rape?
No. Someone back, I think it was in the early 2000s. I don't think these two even knew each other back then. But yes, that's the thing. I was like, wow, that's pretty twisted. One of those random things that makes news and you're just wondering, like, why is this news? But you're kind of like, I'm kind of glad you told me, though. Now, for everyone in the country, I know it's been, the coronavirus has got you nervous, and a lot of stores have gone, and they've run out of sanitizers and masks. Well, I can't help you with the mask situation, but with hand sanitizer, they have a homemade version of it. So if you want to make your own hand sanitizer, I want to make sure I get this right for you because, this is actually kind of important. You're gonna use this process, right? So you're gonna do 1 cup of alcohol, and it should be isopropyl or ethanol, right? Then you're going to do 6 to 10 drops of tea tree oil. This is just to keep it from drying out your hands. You're going to put that in there. Of course, you're going to put that into, some sort of squeezable bottle. But you don't really need to add anything else to really make it the cleaning effect. The whole point of the alcohol is that it should be like 80 to 90% of, of what kills the stuff. The rest of it is just to help the skin. You could add maybe a couple of natural scents into it if you wanted to make it smell good or something like that, because alcohol does smell pretty bad and can, just be off-putting. But that's the whole idea. Just a cup of alcohol and a little bit of tea tree oil to not mess with the skin. I think part of why a lot of the time they tell you to wash your hands even after using alcohol is that it dries out the hands, and when dried hands create cracked skin, which allow for things to get inside anyway. So just do that. So that's just my little tip for you on this whole random. I know I keep going back to the corona thing, but it's like everything in the news goes back to the corona thing. I don't know why, but it just does. And last but not least, before we go to our next commercial break, I thought this was a pretty fun fact for a lot of people in the world. So 4G cell service, which is what a lot of us have now, is now being developed in space for satellite usage, so that people who live nowhere near cell towers in various parts of the world can actually start to gain 4G coverage. So that technology is being developed and manufactured, so this way we can get the internet to more places. I remember telling you almost a year ago, the UN was very focused on making sure at least 2/3 of the world was internet connected, by 2022. And this is one of those things that they're doing to make that possible. So even if you're, I know even America, right? There are a lot of people who get their Wi-Fi and use their cell phones closer to, let's say, the McDonald's or this or that, because they can connect to 4G, they can connect to the internet. This is that step forward, so this way they can actually start doing it at home. So I don't know how strong it'll be or how the whole science and tech of it works, but it'll be usable. It might be dial-up slow, but it'll be usable. All right, on that note, we're going to go to our next commercial break, and when we come back, I'm going to get started on these movies because we got tons of movies to get to.
Girl, I'm getting your loving. Oh, I want it so bad. Come on, give me that love. Ready to make me mad. Don't even understand this. I wanna take away your loneliness. Let's escape to somewhere. A place you always go with. Something I know that you keep. A secret to never tell. You're never gonna let me have. Even though you know so well. Everybody happen to notice. Girl, we're just having fun. Everybody happen to notice. You know me, I'm wrong. Honey, stop your play. I care that you want me to. Come and get some love. I'm gonna give it to you. Ain't no reason to doubt me. No reason for loneliness. How did you like to love me? Just need to put your mind on rest. Something I know that you keep. A secret to never tell. You're never gonna let me have. Even though you know so well. Everybody happen to notice. Girl, we're just having fun. Everybody happen to notice. You know me, I'm wrong. And you know me, I'm gonna be right. You can't deny it. It's like a love train. It's so scary. You know you just can't find it. Oh, you can't deny it. I hope you never change. I hope you're gonna stay the same. Give me all your love the way you did tonight. My arms around you, wanna hold you tight, and I won't let you go. Something and you know me. I'm gonna be right. You can't
So a couple of things in media with the movies and everything I wanted to talk about. So first, you have Lucifer is actually Lucifer is coming back. So that's the thing. So they're in the process of doing season 5. They're saying they've already secured season 6. So you got at least 2 more seasons of Lucifer coming for Netflix. All right. The other thing, a lot of the talk lately has been about Meg Thee Stallion and how she's trying to call out people for her album drop, and there's a whole bunch of money issues and this, that, and the third. And frankly, folks, it just sounds like everything Lil Wayne was dealing with 2 years ago. No one cares. Once something hits social media, it's gonna cause change. And all this money talk and whatever. I mean, honestly, if you listen to what her manager was saying, and the guy who runs the company that was holding the album, whatever, he was like, "I'm giving you crazy first deal. Like, I'm not robbing you of money. I'm giving you more money than what anybody else has ever gotten on a first deal." She's just mad that it's not as much money as she wants or thinks that she should be getting, because Jay-Z's telling her she's worth more. And then he was like, "Well, look at Jay-Z's first contracts to most people, and like, I'm giving you more than he's ever given anybody." Look, it's a bunch of nonsense. None of us need to get involved with it. We just need to laugh at the fact that she's, not as good at math as she thinks she is. Boom. That's all. That should be a comedy routine. And then there are a couple of things that they're thinking about bringing back, but one of them I wanted to get into was Keanu Reeves coming back as Constantine. So a lot of people weren't a huge fan of it. I honestly think that it was a pretty entertaining movie. I know a lot of people who are like, this movie doesn't get enough credit. And there are talks right now to bring him and Tilda Swinton back in their roles from that original, I think it's 2005 Constantine, into the DCEU. So they'll be in an official universe with, Flash and Cyborg and all the rest of them. And I kind of like it conceptually. I think it'd be a really cool idea. And then the question becomes, does that mean that the first DCEU movie is now that 2005 Constantine? And can they play around with anything related to that? A lot of people like Constantine added into the TV, the Arrowverse, so I think it's only a positive. Because I honestly, I really did enjoy Constantine. I was upset that they didn't do a second or third movie for that. So I thought that was a really big find from this past week. But on to the movies that have been out. So one of them is a kids movie, Onward, that was in theaters. I gotta give this movie a 4 out of 5. I thought it was actually a really good movie. It was a really good kids movie. I thought that the ending of it, though, was a little bit of a ripoff. Just a little bit of a ripoff. I know Charles and I were talking about it earlier, and he was like, well, it actually kept my son's attention, so it's got to be a solid movie. But I don't want to give away the ending, but essentially it just kind of felt like everybody could have won, and they just didn't make it happen. That's all. That's all I'll say about it. Everybody could have won, and it just didn't happen. But at least there was a dragon. Can't say the same thing for Angel, but there was a freaking dragon in a Disney movie.
They didn't leave it open for like another part.
I don't think that movie needed a part 2. I think one thing that they did that was pretty cool is that they made, so in the movie it's about monsters or mythical creatures, let me call it that, mythical creatures that have kind of lost their magic, right? And one of them has found magic, and one of them has been obsessed with trying to find magic, and the two of them go on a journey. And along this journey, they kind of reintroduce magic into the world, where if there is any possibility for an Onward 2, I think it may not necessarily be their story, but someone else who's stumbling upon magic, and they end up, the characters from this movie might be, do a cameo in that one. Or, the fact that magic's returning back to the world, maybe there's a new evil threat, and now it turns into more of an action saga than a feel-good movie. That's what it, because there's that aspect of it. There's just nothing for this particular plot line to have a continuation. But I think it was a really solid movie. Normally DreamWorks does good stuff, so you can't go wrong with that sort of thing. Then the other movie that's been in theaters that kind of got big was Bloodshot, right? Vin Diesel taking an indie comic and turning into a movie. This movie has a lot going for it. This movie has a lot of positivity as far as the action sequences, the CGI, even the plot line, right, is actually pretty solid. The issue with this movie is if you've ever seen the trailer or trailers, if for how long you've been following the movie, you've seen the movie. So by default, I gotta give this a 3 out of 5 because I can't tell you to go see it in theaters if you've seen the trailer. Is it a good movie? Yeah, it's a solid action movie. There's not anything really wrong with it. It's just that I saw the movie ahead of time through the trailers. He already showed you all the best parts. Anything that would have been a surprise in the movie is ruined by something that you've seen in the trailer. And not to say that I know a whole lot about the character from comics, but I do know a little bit about the comic universe that he's from, and so anything that would have been, oh my god, wasn't going to be in his origin story. So for me, like, even what I was going to see was kind of like, meh, okay, cool. Like, I feel like I just had too much knowledge going into this movie. So if you're someone who knows nothing about Bloodshot, I think you can enjoy it as you would any normal superhero action flick. But if you have any little bit of knowledge of the movie ahead of time, yeah, it's a pretty oh, okay, whatever. Like, don't go to theaters. Watch it on Netflix. It's definitely worth a watch, just not worth your money. If that makes any sense. But there are a lot of other things that have been on Netflix and Amazon. So first thing I want to get to is Hunters. Hunters is about a group of people who are hunting down Nazis that have survived the war, and the next generation Nazis. This show has a lot of good things in it, but in all honesty, I couldn't really stand watching it. It really feels like a bunch of Jews just complaining about the Holocaust. I live in New York. That's what happens when you're just in a Jewish neighborhood. So for me, it just got really annoying after a while to hear them complaining and complaining and complaining. The best parts about this are actually the scenes that involve the Nazis. It just got really really annoying. It became a hard watch, and especially with stuff that's been happening in New York City recently, where like their complaining has just been getting on my nerves. Al Pacino is actually one of the other things that really disappointed me because they made him a really annoying Jewish uncle or grandpa, like down to the really stereotypical accent. He's part of why I even gave it a chance and sat through most of it, and no, I gotta give this a 2 out of 5. It's not even great pacing. It is essentially every reason, like when people found out that Watchmen got canceled, and they were like, oh, why did this happen? This show pretty much gives you every reason as to why Watchmen got canceled, if that makes any sense. Yeah, exactly. So 2 out of 5. I just couldn't with it. Then on Netflix you have a series called The Gift, and it's a Middle Eastern series that kind of starts off about a lady who can't figure out why she's obsessed with drawing this really unique symbol and what it means. I gave the series a chance because I'm really into The Protector. The Protector came back recently with season 3, and I'm gonna get to that in a second. And so I wanted to give another show from the same country, kind of like that whole mystery feel, whatever. Like it felt like it would be similar vibes. It's not. It's really slow. It's really boring. It's like a bad version of that new show on Hulu called Dev. Yeah, just not messing with this. It's 2 out of 5. There are some interesting moments, which is the only reason I'm not giving it a 1. But overall, as a show, I just could not connect with this at all. I feel like most people couldn't. I don't even think it's a cultural thing. I just think it's like poorly written. The Protector came back with season 3. This is probably the worst season of The Protector, and I feel like a lot of season 3s of series in general are usually one on the lesser scale. But this one in particular, you just lose a lot of what's in touch with the main character. You don't care about the villain as much, to be honest, and it was kind of predictable who the villain was. But the setup for the next season was very, very interesting. And it's funny that I mentioned that because I feel the exact same way about season 3 of On My Block, which also came back with their season 3. This season was a mess. It was a mess of a season. They made an overarching theme, still related to the whole Roller World thing, but it was also irrelevant to most of the storylines that were going on at the same time, except for like maybe once or twice an episode. They're just like, hey, remember this big thing is supposed to be going down. It was really random, really slow. But unlike The Protector, On My Block still does a great job with character development and character relationships. So despite having the overarching theme kind of being meh, I still got to give this show a 3.5 out of 5. And the setup for next season was really good. Although if you really pay attention to the show's first season, the setup is also kind of predictable. So although I saw it coming, it's like, yeah, this does make sense. It was still just like, but I want to see why all this stuff happens. So do watch it. It's not time to give up on My Block yet. It's just one of those things where, yeah, it's not going to be as great as you thought it once was. Also, something else awesome Netflix was a movie called Polaroid, where, you know, the girl takes a picture. I mean, essentially, this movie was like an all-star cast of MTV stars put together in a feature-length film with a very MTV script. I have to give this movie a 2.5 out of 5 because it is a bad movie. But in all honesty, for entertainment value, for me personally, I gotta give it a 4 out of 5 because it's just so bad it's good. Like it just,
I was like,
you know what's gonna happen. Every second you know what's gonna happen because it's so predictable. But it was just such a, like, it was just a fun ride because you know, like, I personally watched all the shows that all those actors were from. So I'm just like, you guys are just so corny anyway that I love it. I just love it. So yeah, it's a really bad movie, but it's a lovable bad movie. So
it's interesting.
yeah, like you're gonna sit there and just like bitch about it the entire time, and then realize you just watched the entire movie, right? Like that's all I can say about it. It's like, come on, you know you don't go over there. You can't stop the ghost with that. It's one of those kind of things. Like you just sit there and you deal with it. You just yeah. And before we go to the next break, the last movie we're going to talk about now is Spencer Confidential, which is Mark Wahlberg doing his version of a police movie. It's a very Boston movie, you know, typical Marky Mark style. But it's the story of a cop who was arrested and is finally getting out of jail, and he's stumbling upon a group of corrupted cops. Now, I'm going to give this movie a 3.5 out of 5 because it was entertaining. The fight scenes were believable. The storyline was it wasn't, you know, amazing, but it was a solid storyline. It's just kind of like the moment that Mark gets out of jail, you already figure out who the main bad guys are. And if you don't, I'm sorry, you don't know anything about movies. Because the moment he gets out of jail, I'm like, yep, that's the bad guy. So, you know, with that, I spent the next, I guess, 40 minutes of the movie just waiting for Mark to figure it out and to do something about it. But it's a good movie. I have nothing. Even Post Malone in his little brief cameo in the film did his part very well. Like, you know, you can't go wrong with it. It's a solid watch. It's just nothing that's going to win an Oscar. So on that note, we're going to go to our last break. When we come back, the fans of the week and the last few movies.
You must think I'm a demon, huh?
I guess what you was doing, I was like business fight. Wasn't personal.
My brother, it's always business. Never personal.
Act one.
Chest up, my cloth the best cut. Get over it, things happen, at times you mess up. But guess what? You know I kept the mission in mind. Life's a roller coaster, but don't get stuck in line. Go with the flow, ups and downs, highs and lows. They'll have you running through a maze with your eyes closed. Open them up, realize you're wearing blindfolds. Yup, but still win, only weak-minded folks. Guaranteed to serve you in negative situations. Setbacks, bird brains, talk badly. Roadblocks and losses doesn't mean you have to digest it.
You know what? Somebody
Take
should have thought of that.
invest it. Let's get it. Flip it, never dipping it. The paper trail's infinite. The high roller lifestyle, you know I was meant for it. Collecting pots of piss liver than the Gaza Strip. But still misunderstood like your family pit. But don't take it personal, take the cash wire debit. Over dramatic, theatric, over street credit.
That's it.
Here reaching better.
Then you gonna bring your friends.
To each his own, but for the win, I'm Edelman. Don't take it personal, take cash wire debit. Over dramatic, theatric, over street credit. I'm here reaching better, man. Look at where you settle.
Just bring that part.
It's over for the win,
Stab
I'm
that part.
Edelman. Stack relentless to my loved ones, get the message. I know killers who spit on gold when they crack a sentence, but these rhymes will beat you down till you're left defenseless. Like a super villain striking back with a vengeance. Any rapper feeling safe here, saw my slogan. To get what you want at times, you flex like Hogan. I paid attention to wisdom every time God's spoken. 10 plus years, you will see why my time's chosen a slogan. Keep focused and elevate daily. Get legal paper, but you would think the work's scaly. What goes around comes around, great, call me nail me. Get pardon who I failed, forgive those who failed me. But don't take it personal, take your cash wire debit. Roll a dramatic, theatric, over street credit. I'm here reaching better, man. Look at where you settle. To each his own, but for the win, I'm Edelman. Don't take it personal, take cash wire debit. Roll a dramatic, theatric, over street credit. I'm here reaching better, man. Look at where you settle. To each his own, but for the win, I'm Edelman.
Something that said that coronavirus has only not reached West Virginia. My guess is because they don't go nowhere and nobody has a reason to go there. Right? If you're not going to watch any of the West Virginia University games, you're not going to West Virginia for anything. So, it's a good thing for them. Somebody else was joking around saying, messing with your cousins make you immune. But if that's the case, all this stuff would be fine. It wouldn't just be West Virginia. Come on now. Nah, right? Louisiana. So we got our fans of the week. I don't know, who do you have up first, Charles? Last week. Okay, so first we have my boy Thomas. He's been a constant follower, so shout out to him. We got Instagram's Misguided Ghost, who's won this several times before. Then Sharon Scott, who's been a consistent follower on Facebook, and Andrew, another guy who was really consistent last week on Facebook. So shout out to him. I think that's his first time winning this, right? And then we have Tara from Facebook, right? She's been consistent the last, since 2020 started. So y'all, that's the person to beat, it seems. This next guy is Feeve Gwendol, right? That's what it is. Like Gwendol. Doule, that's a weird one. I can't figure that out. But shout out to you for being a fan. Then Just K28 on Instagram, and Spacey GX, the other Thomas, on Instagram as well. So shout out to y'all. Oh, yeah, that's what he posted. He posted that on his page, man. I don't know what he must have been feeling some type of way. But last week we had a photo with the guys from the R&R show. So shout out to them that I wanted to just post up. They brought their show back to the LDM network. So you can tune into that on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. My boy Ralph over there doing his thing. And then my picture of the week for this week is about outstanding cats. Because I thought this is probably the corniest thing I've seen in a long time. And I was surprised by how many people were actually enjoying this particular meme. About a cat who just says, "Tell the owner I'm outside and it'll be an outstanding cat." Like really? Alright, great. So we're going to do a quick rundown of the last few things of this. So one is that there's a great Hulu show called The Other Guy. I give the series a 4 out of 5. It's about an Aussie radio host who's trying to figure out his life post his breakup with his longtime lover. Another show that's been on Netflix getting a lot of buzz called Love is Blind. It was actually really funny. And fun fact, one of the contestants is being considered for going up on The Bachelor and Bachelorette series. If you can figure out who, I might give you a cookie. Netflix movie getting a lot of buzz is a movie called Freaks. It's about a bunch of these odd mutant people trying to survive in the normal world. It's an interesting concept, not a great pull off. Give it a 2.5 out of 5. I do say you can skip it, but if you have nothing else to do because you got 2 weeks off due to Corona, put it on your list, I guess. A great show for you to watch, though, is Queen Sono. It's a story of a South African spy. A, she's hot. B, the action is good. And C, you don't often get many stories about Africa that are worthwhile watching, so I would recommend watching it. If you are someone who has been looking at, what is this called? Ironically, nobody's looking. You can skip it. And Castlevania came back with season 3, and most fans are disappointed because how do you have a show about Dracula without Dracula? All right. So yeah, I give it a 3 out of 5 though, just because they made the black guy the focus of it. So by default, Wakanda. And a comedy special that came out, Taylor Tomlinson Quarter Life Crisis, actually very relatable. But it's another comedy special that doesn't leave you with a lot of laughs, just a lot of like, oh yeah, moments. So there's that. Before we leave, it's a sad day for those of us who, for years, have gone there to shop. But Modell's will be closing. It's filing bankruptcy and closing its last stores. Aww. I know, right? So it's been around for 121 years and is eventually, now I didn't even realize it. Yeah, I didn't know it was around for that long. 121 years, and it is finally...
I feel like it only came out in the 70s.
Because it didn't franchise big until around then. Yeah, it was a home store, this, that, and the third, and it franchised out. So they're finally closing down. So sorry to hear that, because the stores. As far as I know, they haven't said anything about doing stuff online, because you can order directly from the warehouse. So now you can order directly from Nike. Like, their online was never really big. It was about going to the store. So if you're looking for sporting goods, you gotta find a Dick's. I just really wanted to say that word. But on that note, it's been another Will's Review, and I will catch you guys next time.
Excuse me, I'm next in line. Move. Excuse me, I'm next in line. Watch out. Excuse me, I'm next in line. I said move. Excuse me, I'm next in line.